Public speaking is one of the biggest fears of people in society today. But what is it exactly about public speaking that scares people so much, and how can people actually overcome that fear of speaking in public? Well, on this week's episode of GetPsyched, we're going to be taking a look at just that. What's up guys, welcome to another week's episode of GetPsyched, and like I said, this week we're going to be taking a look at what exactly the fear of public speaking is all about and how you can actually overcome that fear of public speaking. So the first question that we need to ask is, what is the fear of public speaking actually all about? Well, basically as it sounds, the fear of public speaking, or glossophobia as it's normally called, is where people have really high anxiety or really high concerns about speaking in front of any group of people of any size really. This fear is very much subjective too, so for what might be difficult and anxiety provoking for one individual might not be for another. For example, some are scared of speaking in front of big groups, some are actually even more scared of speaking in front of small groups. Some prefer speaking in front of family and friends, and some prefer speaking in front of strangers. Likewise, there are people that get really scared of speaking in front of strangers or really scared of speaking in front of family and friends. The element of subjectivity to the fear of public speaking is really important to consider here. It's often reported that the fear of public speaking actually stems from people being embarrassed or concerned that they're going to make a mistake. What happens is that they fear that people will judge them when they're on a platform when they're actually at their most vulnerable. And I'm sure if you take a minute to consider that, you can understand how being on a stage or being in front of a group of people, having to hold their attention, hold their concentration, engage them with some information can be really difficult, but especially difficult if you're worried that you're going to be judged. A study conducted by Garcia in 2013 found that some symptomologies to the fear of public speaking are very much correlated to that of anxiety. Things like shallow breathing and increased heart rate, for example. Things such as dilated pupils, sweating, and even shaking are other symptomologies that can be associated to the fear of public speaking. Perhaps you can resonate with this. There's also been studies that have correlated the fear of public speaking to being similar to the fear of death, and that actually shows you just how intense this fear of public speaking can be for some people. Now, I've had quite a few opportunities to actually speak in public over the past couple of years, and I find that experience really enjoyable, but I also get really anxious at times. There are times when I can be really afraid of actually speaking in front of people. I often get concerned mostly with not being able to engage people perhaps, or losing my train of thought. One of the ways that I enjoy public speaking, or one of the ways that I feel like I'm best at public speaking, is when I don't really have that many notes. For example, I might have some very basic slides, or some key PowerPoints, or some key bullet points that I want to get across. I find it better to have that relatable feel when I speak in public, but that also does bring with it the opportunity for me to perhaps lose my place, or repeat myself, or make a mistake somewhere. So often knowing that the way I like to speak can sometimes correlate with potential mistakes being made, that can at times increase some anxiety for me. Even when I started GetPsyched about 2 years ago, it's not the exact same thing, but I know that the content I'm putting out is going to reach people, so I technically am kind of speaking in front of people. I was always very conscious of making mistakes, and if you actually go through to my first videos, you'll find that, word for word, I'm making sure that I'm being clear as possible, I'm not stuttering. As things have progressed, you'll actually see some kind of recent videos where I do stutter sometimes and I just leave it in. I get a little bit more comfortable, or I have got more comfortable as GetPsyched progressed. But when I first started, I really did have that anxiety, very similar to the fear of public speaking. Okay, so that's what public speaking, or the fear of public speaking, is really all about. What prevalence does the fear of public speaking have in society today though? Well, recent research conducted at the University of Tennessee in the United States of America found that around 75% of people have some form of the fear of public speaking. Now, of course, this can be inhibiting to people's professional development. If their career requires them to be speaking in front of people at conferences or workshops, for example, if they have a really debilitating fear of public speaking, then it can be a real hindrance to their professional development. It can also be a real hindrance to quality of life. For example, if they're doing a talk at a wedding or some kind of function, some kind of personal function, it's very unpleasant. That anxiety can be really, really high. And when I said earlier about there's similarities between the symptomology and the prevalence of the fear of death with the fear of public speaking, I was being serious, that is the case. So the question then is, how do we actually overcome the fear of public speaking? Well, it's clear then that the fear of public speaking, of course, is huge, and it can impact people in many different ways and to huge effects. But there are a number of steps that you can take now and on the lead up to a public event, if you are speaking at something, that you can actually manage that fear to some degree. Now, I actually have a book somewhere in the back here, and I'm just trying to find it. It's about the fear of public speaking. Here it is. It's called And Death Came Third. Now, I haven't read this book the whole way through actually. I got it a long time ago. It looks quite new. I suppose that shows you just how much I actually haven't read the full thing. But it is a really good book. What I did read was quite impactful actually. And it was like it gave you some kind of structure, some kind of understanding of what public speaking actually entails, some really positive steps on how you can do that. But I also talked about the fear of public speaking, and the census and death came third was the fact that in a huge survey conducted in the States, the fear of public speaking was the biggest fear that people had over death. Actually, I think public speaking was first, death was third. I don't know what was second. But it shows you just how scared people are actually of public speaking. So this book is actually a really good one that you could get if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how to improve your public speaking, or actually get over that fear of public speaking, get over that anxiety. I definitely recommend this. Anyway, on to some of my tips for overcoming that fear of public speaking. The first thing you have to do is you have to start small. And when I say small, I mean really small. Write out a couple of paragraphs of something that you want to say if you've got a public function coming out that you're going to be speaking at. Write a couple of paragraphs out and read them out to yourself. Once you develop from that point, why not record yourself speaking and listen back to it? When I said that we're starting small, this is how small we're starting, that you actually are the only person that you're going to be speaking in front of. You're going to be the only person listening to your voice. So when I say really small, that's what I mean. We need to build from the ground up if we're going to improve that fear of public speaking. You can then develop to speaking in front of your partner or some close friends or family members, for example. It's so important that you don't just jump into something like this when you're really, when your anxiety actually can have a real impact on how well you speak in public. It's important that you don't just jump in head first. Take the time to start small. The next step here is to prepare well. The one thing that causes people to have that elevated sense of the fear of public speaking is that they're afraid that they're going to mess up, that they're going to slip up, or that they're going to make a mistake. Therefore, one of the remedies that you can do is to control what you can control. Preparation is one of those things. Make advance notes on your talk and then rehearse it regularly. One of the things that I do if I'm doing a kind of reasonably short talk is I'll actually have a full script written out of the word for what I want to say. Now, I don't read that off when I'm doing my talk, but it just gives me a bit of a bedrock to know kind of what I want to say. In an ideal world, this is exactly what I would say. I then often make really abbreviated notes on that text and some key bullet points so that when I look at those bullet points when I'm actually on stage or when I'm actually speaking to people, I know what it is I'm trying to get across. Now, I might word it a little bit differently than when I first typed that big transcript out, but that doesn't matter. I'm still getting that main point across. Now, I think context is really important here as well. In the middle of June this year, I'm going to be doing a TED Talk in Glasgow, and one of the things that they want you to do is they want to really make sure that you're very, very clear with what you're saying. So actually memorizing the talk, my talk's only going to be 8 minutes long. So actually memorizing that transcript is vital for them. So that's a different way of working for me, but I'm actually looking forward to doing that. It's very different to what I normally do. I normally have those bullet points and I find that really effective. Now, my next tip is a little bit contrary to what I've just said, but it is important if you're kind of new to public speaking or if you're actually giving like an hour-long talk. It's important not to just memorize your script. What happens often is that people are thinking that they're going to overcome that fear of public speaking or that fear of messing up by memorizing a script, and what actually happens is that they try and do that and then they mess up a couple of words on the day and they completely get sidetracked. That completely throws them. It's really important that you know your key points. Like I said earlier, don't just rely on the memorization of that script. Have 10 key points you want to get across in a half-hour talk and you're winning. You don't need to worry about having memorized a full transcript. You don't need to know it word for word, because if you do that and you slip up, you're more likely to have that increased sense of anxiety actually on the stage when you're speaking. My next key point is to reduce your stress. The most anxious moments of speaking in public are the couple of moments before you actually go on stage. It's all good and well preparing 3, 4, 5 months in advance, but there's nothing compared to actually the minute before you're about to go on. Believe me, I know how anxiety provoking that can be at times. It's really important that you utilize some breathing techniques to help reduce that stress. One of the things that I do is to try and do some visualization work, where I visualize a positive outcome for that talk. Me really getting across my key points, being eloquent, well spoken, not really messing up. So visualizing that kind of positive outcome is really important, combined with what I call belly breathing. So what often happens is that when we get anxious or when we get stressed, especially attributed to the fear of public speaking, is we have this kind of shallow breathing thing going on, and it's kind of in our chest. We're kind of shallow breathing from our chest, and we get really anxious at times. That really increases that level of anxiety. If you take some slow belly breathing, in through your nose, out through your mouth, let your belly swell up and then deflate, that's going to really help reduce that level of stress. If you do that a couple of minutes before you go on stage, honestly, that will really help. My last key point is one that's really important to me actually. It's about engaging with your audience. I've always found public speaking to be enjoyable, but I've done that, it's been enjoyable because I've engaged the audience. And I don't just mean them getting to listen to what you say, actually involving them. When you get your talk to be something like a conversation, that's when I think you're winning. I think you're doing really, really well if you can manage to kind of speak almost like you're speaking one-to-one with somebody, no matter the number of people that are actually in the room. If you're able to engage the audience like that, it's so much more enjoyable for you. It makes it more relatable. You're not worried about messing up or slipping up or worrying about your words. It really helps alleviate that anxiety and that fear of public speaking. Okay guys, today we've been looking at the fear of public speaking, and we've been looking at some of my top tips on actually overcoming that fear of public speaking. Guys, if you've been enjoying GetPsyched, then make sure to hit that subscribe button. You can hit that little bell next to the subscribe button and get weekly reminders every time I upload. If you've enjoyed today's video, then make sure to comment. You can like the videos and you can share them as well. And once again guys, thanks so much for watching, and hopefully catch you next week.